and welcome to This Week in Evansville. I'm Johnny Kincaid. Glad that you're going to take a little bit of time to be here with us, and want to remind you to be sure to subscribe, or, of course, you can always comment or do something to let us know that you're there. But the big thing is to subscribe so that you always know when a new episode comes your way, or like us so that, kind of elevates us in the rankings on YouTube and elsewhere. This week, Janet Douglas is back with us.
I am here.
And, well, we're going to, okay.
I'm going to interview Johnny.
Okay. But I want to kind of set this up a little bit so that people understand what we're going to do here. Because I'm going to bite the hand that fed me for 40 years. And what I mean by that is that, I was in the media for 40 years. And the media has changed drastically over that. Yeah. Man, has it changed over that period of time. So we're going to kind of bite the hand that fed me for all that time, because I think it's really important to share about how the news media works, and even entertainment sources work sometimes in influencing our opinions about things and shaping popular opinion. So that's where we're going to go today. And I hope that it's a good ride for you because there's some interesting stuff. And if you don't mind, I want to talk a little bit about the history and how things have changed. Because when we get to the end of this thing, you'll be going, the media really does all of that?
Exactly.
When I started out, we're talking ancient history in the 70s, and there was the Federal Communications Commission had been around since 1939, and that's the branch of the government that oversees everything dealing with broadcasting. And the rules have changed drastically over the years. FCC is still there, but the rules have all changed. So when I was just getting into broadcasting, we had a pretty healthy list of things we could and couldn't do, and what the rules were, and what the words were that we could not, under any circumstances, say on radio. And
that's definitely changed.
Yes, we abided by all of that, though. It was, and you didn't even really get that much into innuendo, and every part of the reason why everybody abided by it is because every radio station was owned by somebody locally. See, the rules from the FCC were that you could only own one radio station or you could own an AM and an FM. You couldn't own two FM stations. You couldn't own two AMs. You couldn't own the radio station and the newspaper except under certain conditions, and TV and radio being combined had to meet certain specifications as well. So ownership was more difficult, but it was always somebody local. If I did something on the air in 1975 that offended somebody locally, the owner of the radio station would wind up hearing from somebody because he lived in that community and people knew him, and they'd come up to him and they'd go, "Hey, Steve, what are you doing letting those guys say this on the air?" And then he would call me into his office and we'd have a little conversation and everything. So that's all changed because the ownership rules have changed. Now, stations can own up to a certain percentage of the listening audience is the way that it's determined now. And it doesn't matter how many stations are involved in that. So in Evansville, you have two companies that own all of the radio stations in town, all the commercial stations, right? You have Midwest Communications, which bought WIKY and all of the stations in that group. They bought them from South Central Communications, which was the local family operation, the Engelbrecht family, and I loved that family and worked for them for a couple of years, and they were just great to deal with. And not everybody felt that way, but I got along great with them, and but they were the local owner, you could contact John Engelbrecht. Well, Midwest is not based here locally. They own a bunch of other radio stations. The other group of stations, which includes WKDQ, is their biggest station in Dallas, where I worked a pretty good deal of amount of time. They are owned by the third largest broadcast company in America, radio broadcast company in America. They're one of 300 radio stations that they own across America. They're based out of Connecticut, right? Decisions get made about what the station's going to do locally by people in Connecticut.
That should answer a lot about what we hear on our news right there.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But that conglomeration of things, and the move is that in broadcasting, it's all about how much cheaper can we do it. I think back to 1975, you had to have an on-air staff full-time of 6 or 7 people, full-time on air. Now, you might have 2 people assigned to a radio station, maybe, sometimes only one. Or sometimes it's a person from another station that's just kind of overseeing that particular radio station. Because in this day and age of computers and satellites and all of that, they can take their programming from the corporate, or they can just record the person's voice and knock out. I used to be able to knock out a 30-minute, a 4-hour on-air shift in less than 30 minutes, because all I had to do was record my little bits and put it all together. So that world changed. And I'm not saying that it's all bad. I love the technology. Mm-hmm. We had more fun doing things because with cellular, we could go out on location, and I rode around in the backseat of a police car one time, broadcasting live. It was so much fun. That's fun. But along with all of that technology also came a lot less regulation, and people started pushing the limits. But the biggest danger in all of that is the fact that there are fewer people in control of what you hear.
Right.
Whether it's decisions about songs, it used to be a record would get, I couldn't tell you how many records.
Did you just say record?
Record. I go back to records, 45 RPM records, and we'd have a stack of them like this every week that would come in, and you'd have to sort through them for which ones were the dogs that you wouldn't play on the air no matter what, and which ones you thought were going to be hits, and you'd put the ones that were going to be hits into the control room and throw the others away.
We've come a long way.
We have, but we made those decisions locally based on what we thought was going to work for our audience, mm-hmm. and nobody else.
Right.
And now you have a gatekeeper that may be gatekeeper for 200 radio stations. So how do you break through in the national music scene if you've got a guy who's controlling what gets played on 200 radio stations? So
on those, I'm just asking because I don't know the history. On those 200 stations, does the same thing get played everywhere? Or
in many cases,
by one person deciding?
Yeah, it depends on the corporation. But yeah, that's pretty common.
So it's not focused on where you are.
No.
Like you said, we're ruled from Connecticut. What we see, what we hear comes from Connecticut.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Now, there may be some minor decisions that get made on the local level, but the vast majority of it gets handed down from the mountaintop.
Wow. So
your choices are the decisions that are made by 2 companies in Evansville for what you listen to on the radio, if you're even listening to radio anymore. Mm-hmm. The fortunate thing is the Pandora and things like that have kind of have taken over those gaps, right? So you still have some choices available to you, but it's become a much different world. The philosophies of programming have changed, and their goal is to make as much money as they possibly can. Mm-hmm. Then in television, kind of the same sort of things happen, which is why you have 2 TV stations operating out of the same company in Evansville, in a couple of different cases. Mm. The reason for that is because they can, and they make more money doing that. And they've shrunk their staff sizes and their news departments The news anchors do way more hours on air than what they've ever done. And yes, a local news director makes the decision on that news programming on that station. So, they may get some input from corporate about some things, but they make the decisions at the local level on that. But it's all based on whether they have enough staff to cover things.
Wow.
Again, when I first came to Evansville, I remember weekends, like Thunder on the Ohio and things like that. You would see, throngs of news people, local news people out. And
right.
Every TV station with their newscast, they would have on the weekends, they'd have maybe 4 or 5 reporters plus a camera person for each one of those reporters. They'd go out and they'd, cover activities going on the weekend. Now, you're fortunate if there's one person working to go out and collect news stories, one reporter for the entire weekend. And wow. That's it on a TV station. So again, it shrinks down what's available to you as far as content and information goes. And if you ever sit in front of the TV and you think for a minute that the purpose of television news is to inform you, let me tell you right now, this is where the TV stations are going to get mad. They are not there to inform you. Mm-mm. News directors will puff themselves up and say, yeah, we're here to inform. But the truth is that the only purpose of that TV newscast is to deliver an audience to the advertiser.
Right.
That's it. If they don't deliver an audience, the advertiser's not going to be there. That newscast isn't going to be there. Their purpose is to deliver an audience. So they have to figure out what angle do we take in order to make sure that we deliver that audience. And now it's based on bias. And because of the choices that you make, cable news led us to this bias thing. I'm really getting on a soapbox.
You are, but that's okay because I think people need to know how far we've come and how fast and furious things have shifted. But we're reining it back. We're pulling it back a little bit with programs like this.
Yeah. The fact is that Fox News, all of the cable news outlets, CNN came in and they were pure. And it was the Persian Gulf War. They were pure. And the Gulf War, they embedded with the troops.
They did.
They were a phenomenal source of information in the beginning. And then along came Fox News. And what Fox did was Fox brought a bias. Mm-hmm. They brought a slogan that was fair and balanced, which neither fair nor balanced.
You're going to upset a lot of
I know.
With the whole Fox deal, but that's okay.
But
it's truth.
Right. And I'm not saying that you're wrong for agreeing with what you see, but what it's done is it's put people in the position then of choosing their news based on who they agree with.
Right.
But
they are fair and balanced. So they say.
So they say, yes. They don't use that slogan a lot anymore because it really has become about those biases.
But they're friends.
What drives the network.
Fox and Friends.
Fox and Friends,
so
yes.
We got to get a slogan. Yeah.
But that over the course of time, we've had MSNBC emerge to become a very liberal, biased network.
Very.
Fox is a very conservative, biased network. And CNN is a liberal, and sometimes they don't know what the heck they are with their biases as a network. And then some other smaller networks that have come along too, that all put a bias out there. And I'm not saying don't watch them. I'm saying be aware of the fact that news story, the wording that they use, the way they present the news story, and which stories they choose to show you are all a part of a bias that exists. Mm-hmm. And they do it not because they want to present the bias. They do it because they know that there's a certain number of people in this country that believe in that philosophy and will tune in because they're believers in the philosophy. So that's why on Fox, you see nonstop coverage of the border. There are a whole lot of people. I'm not saying they're wrong.
Right.
There are a whole lot of people who see it that way and see the border as being a huge concern.
Mm-hmm. And it is.
It absolutely is. And other media is not covering it the way that Fox does. But you have to understand when you see that bias happen, or when you see those stories happening, you have to understand that the bias exists.
Right.
So that you can process it with that understanding. If you buy everything that they say, you will just be regurgitating what Fox says. And they're not going to be right all the time.
Right. You know, it's funny that you say that, because we hear the news media talk about different people in, let's say, in office, and even accuse them of bringing division to the American people, and they have.
Right.
But the reality is, where does that story come from as well?
Right.
And those that continue, you can listen to the news for the first 15 minutes of a morning, and it's still the same news at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. So it's an ongoing. So in reality, what are they doing that's any different to bring division? It's like a ongoing mirage of the same concept, same story.
Mm-hmm. And I remember when I can't remember the Right to Life kid youth in D.C. That was in the face off with the guy right with the Native American.
Yeah,
guy.
I can't remember his name at the moment, but yes, I see his face.
When that story first broke, and everybody in the media, regardless of what channel it was, they all came flying at that kid as being dead set wrong, and he was smug, and he was this, and he was that. All of the media went after it.
They did.
On Sunday, I was working as a news producer. It was a title that wasn't really real. I was a production assistant that sat and typed in news stories. But the story on Sunday, the story had shifted by the time that Sunday rolled around, and the story was shifting to, the kid was confronted. He wasn't being the one confronting. And I saw the story in our rack for the newscast, and I looked up at the anchor person and I said, the story the way that we have it in here is wrong.
Wow. This
is all changed. And she just shrugged her shoulders and read the story on air.
Wow.
Exactly the way that it was in her prompter, never changed any of it to reflect that the story had turned. So, media can get it wrong.
Wow.
And sometimes they can stick with wrong when they really shouldn't. I know I bashed Fox a little bit, but this is not a Fox. It's everybody.
It's everybody.
See, it's just endemic in the media.
And I don't think you bash them. I think you're just telling the truth that we rarely hear about news media, because it's every media. So I don't think you bashed them. I think you just exposed it somewhat.
Well, okay, good. That makes me feel a little bit better.
Okay, you feel better.
Except when I start getting screamed at in the supermarket or something by somebody. But
be nice to Johnny in the supermarket.
But the simple fact is that we in this program we decided to do this because I kept seeing the amount of local news being available to us, gradually decreasing, and news staffs at the TV stations get smaller. The amount of real good, solid information on local politics that's diminished. I mean, so I wanted to have an outlet where we could spend time with candidates.
Right.
If you're going to run for mayor, tell everybody why you're running, what you can do for us, and we'll take the time and see. And I don't think it's my job to interrupt somebody. I want even if they're from a different belief than me.
Right.
I want them to have the opportunity to share what they believe without it being rammed back down their throat. So I try to approach it where the truth is I'm biased. I'm conservative. I'm Christian. That carries some biases with it.
Sure.
And I'm upfront with it. if somebody is in here that comes in is Democrat, I will look at them and just tell them point blank, hey, you already know that I'm a conservative, and that's my vantage point, but I'm not going to try to trip you up on anything.
Right.
I want to hear from you.
I've not ever seen you do that. You've been fair and balanced.
Oh, geez.
Somebody's got to be. No, really, you have. You've been really honest up front, and you've given people an outlet, which is what we're hoping to do on this broadcast, on this show, is to give people an opportunity, a place to come and speak what they believe in, and poke at them a little bit, and push them and prod them a little bit to tell the city what's going on, what they're thinking.
And ask them questions sometimes that
they ordinarily wouldn't be asked.
Exactly. I go back to when Rick Davis was running for mayor and against Lloyd Winnicky, and at that time we had a lot more local media presence. It's amazing how quickly that all has been changing. But I called them both and I said, okay, look, I want to bring you guys in on the morning show. I said, morning show on our station is meant to be entertaining. So so I can't bring you in and give you just the whole, interview process about what you're going to do for the city.
Right.
And so instead I said, well, I want you to come in and we're going to do this at the Donut Bank. So it's in public. And we're going to play Evansville trivia.
Oh.
and the two candidates for mayor came in and sat down, and the Donut Bank made some custom cookies for us.
Okay.
And each time that they
answered
a question correctly, they'd get a cookie. And then the only rule was I had the right to change the rules at any time I wanted to.
I like that idea.
And it was just fun. It was a different way, and you got to know them a little bit differently. So I want to do some of that, of getting to know people a little bit differently than what you would from most of the real standard news media.
It's a standard interview, yeah.
And
that's good.
Yeah. So and sometimes in doing that, I ask questions that don't get appreciated, but that's okay.
Right.
It's all part of it.
Well, they need to be asked. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that we're missing in our news today.
Well, so just so that you know, that's kind of the heart for doing this, is wanting to give people an opportunity to get to know other people, to get to know them in a different way, to show that we can disagree civilly with people. Because I think that's really important, especially at the local political level,
right.
That we deal with a lot on this show. So, I've had people that were just absolutely furious with me over things, and I'll wind up saying, "Can we just go have coffee?" And we work through it then from there. So hopefully that's what, if I say something that offends you, that gets you upset, instead of wanting to jump all over me or spit at me, instead, let's go have coffee.
Let's go have coffee at Donut Bank.
I made a rule with somebody one time. I said, we will go have coffee, but we will not speak a word of politics. We're going to go and talk about kids and grandkids. And that's going to be the main topic of the conversation.
That's a good topic.
I want you to brag on your grandkids. I'll brag on mine, and we'll get along fine.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say this because you're not gonna say it, but one of the things that when we first moved here, you were already on radio, so that was a long time ago for us. But you had that, and you were. I listened to other radio stations, but you had that distinct voice. And I believe that it was how you carried yourself, but I also believe a lot of that came with the honor and the respect that you had for the business and for the job itself. And even your love for Evansville as you continued through your career there. And then even after that, you shifted. I think you were probably already doing some of that, but you shifted even after your radio time of your emceeing a lot of events. You've done Right to Life. You've done political events. You've done. Tell us a little bit about all of that, because you do a lot of that.
Well, the funny thing is, a lot of people, especially when I first got into radio,
you have the radio voice, Johnny.
People in radio tend to be introverts, and I certainly was, and I had to fight beyond that, because I thought there's something, there's got to be more to it than just going in and sitting in a room all by yourself,
right?
Talking to yourself, which is really what
we're learning that
radio
right
is.
now.
So I decided to kind of force myself into doing more things, and that's where the emceeing things and stuff like that came about. Was because I just and of course I was living the life of a heathen.
I would have never guessed that.
Some of the adventures I will not share with you, but I started to learn more about emceeing and crowd control from doing stand-up comedy in Central California, and I would go to San Francisco to Cobb's Pub and do their open mic night and stuff like that. And I figured out that the way that I made money at that was that I was the MC in the opening act, and I would hire the comedians, and I'd sell the package of the show to a bar for X amount. The
I'm learning things today.
Headliner never knew that I made more money than the headliner. But
I'm learning some things today.
And I one night I walked off stage after finishing a set, and a comedian by the name of Will Durst. Will Durst became nationally known. Does big shows. Mm-hmm. All right? Mm-hmm. Will Durst was my headliner.
Wow.
And I walked off stage, and Will looks at me and he goes, "I bet you didn't know that you just did my material." And I went, "Uh-huh." And he said, "I also want you to know I'm not changing my act just because you
oh my word
just butchered my material." He said, "I'm just going to go out there and show you how it should be done."
Oh, wow.
That was my last comedy show.
Oh, wow.
But but I did a lot of sleazy bar things. That
was when you were a heathen.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. We're just getting that straight. You're not a heathen anymore.
Not anymore.
Okay.
And then I got hired by a company that put on truck and tractor pulls.
Okay, I could go with that.
And started doing announcing for those. So I'd do my radio show Monday through Friday. And Friday, after I got off the air, I'd head to the airport, fly in whatever city we were doing a show in. And we had a little regular circuit that we worked. Cow Palace in San Francisco. And the biggest show was Aloha Stadium.
Oh, my. Oh, my.
And we had 35,000 people in Aloha Stadium for a truck and tractor pull.
Wow.
And I was looking at we had a local class, and I was looking at the entry forms, and I went, "Oh, I can't pronounce these names."
Oh boy.
And they hired
that would be me.
They hired a local to stand behind me, and I would hold my sheet up with the person's information. This guy would whisper in my ear to tell me how to pronounce the name. Because their W's are V's. The state name is Hawaii, and things like that. So,
my goodness.
This guy would just help get me through the show.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So.
Do we have anybody behind you today telling you what to say?
No, not today.
Wow, that's incredible. I didn't know that about you.
But I did those things because you overcome fear every time that most people are afraid of standing up in a business meeting with a half dozen people in the room, and I forced myself into 35,000 people, and I'm standing down on the field, with these 35,000 people in the stands. But it's what led me to understand more about kind of the group psychology of things, mm-hmm. and then how to apply that. And so it's been something that's served me really well and prepared me for Sunday morning ministry.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Because you really, Sunday mornings can be a real struggle getting in front of the congregation for that. But I think that God planted me in those circumstances, even living a heathen life.
He does that.
To give me this batch of skills that I would be able to use when I finally found Him.
Right.
And giving and I still love getting in front of crowds and doing public speaking and everything, but it's because God guided me there,
right?
In very very unusual ways. And one of these days, I've got to sit down and put all of that on paper.
Yeah, you do.
But
well, that's our training days, don't you think? That all of that time that we're going through, those days when we're in a heathen, we really are training for that time that we have with God. It's the training for reigning, but really everything that we learn in our lives can go toward that. You're sharing your story, and I'm not going to go into mine, but when you said that, I thought about the very first time. It wasn't 35,000 people. I think it was around 8,000. The first time I sang the Star Spangled Banner at a ball game and totally went blank, like, oh my, I don't remember the words to the Star Spangled Banner. But one even funnier, you're going to laugh at this one. The first time I was called to Nashville for TBN program when I was singing Southern gospel music. It's still a good thing. I totally forgot all the words to the second version or the second verse. Totally. And I'm trying to wait for the turnaround, the turnaround music to come back around to hit the second verse. I made up the entire second verse because I totally went blank, and I'm on this camera live doing a live show, and I'm like trying to come up, what am I going to... That's when I knew God was real, because I'm thinking in the back of my mind, God, you got to do this because I do not remember the words. And no one ever knew, and they probably would never know except I just told on myself. But I think it prepares us for even times like today, sitting here in this studio where you are today. And here we are.
Your national anthem story.
Yes.
Reminds me of remember back in the 80s, a guy named Robert Goulet, for some of us are old enough to remember Robert Goulet. And he butchered the national anthem.
Yes, he did.
And I don't think he butchered it that bad, but he just bobbled the words.
Well, it wasn't Roxanne's version. So
yeah, exactly. But so
Roseanne, yes. Right.
So that was kind of fresh on people's minds when we did one of our truck and tractor pulls in Hawaii. And we hired, it just so happened that at the same time that we were on the island, another big star was on the island, which was Boxcar Willie.
Oh my.
You remember commercials for Boxcar Willie on TV?
Boxcar Willie.
Sold more records than the Beatles and Elvis.
Yep.
So,
sure did.
So Boxcar Willie is on the field to sing our national anthem. We've got 35,000 people sitting in the stands, and Boxcar Willie is afraid that he's going to forget the lyrics, just like Robert Goulet did. So he then makes sure that he won't proceed with the song until the words have changed on the Jumbotron.
Oh, my word.
Oh, say, can you see?
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
seriously. Oh, my.
And it was that way through the whole anthem. Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So you're not the only one to face that fear of forgetting the lyrics.
We faced our fears.
That's it. All right. Well, we've just blown through another 30 minutes here.
So we're going to continue this conversation because we want to share with you where he came from, but now where we are and what he's doing now and what we're doing here with this show, and what we believe that God is leading us to do in the future with this particular program with this guy, Johnny Kincaid.
Yeah, we would never, certainly, really, truly, never want to share the story of rubble and things that were wrong in life, without sharing the fact that after meeting Jesus, that changed. Yeah. And I still screw up, but I'm not out looking for
story,
it. Yeah, And I'm a sucker for a story about redemption now. So
Love it.
we thank you for your time again, and hope that you join us again next time. Be sure that you subscribe. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. That's very, very important. Of course,
And
like
share.
us, share, comment.
Like, share, comment.
Let us know how much of a fool you think I am. Let me know how much you love Fox News, and I have just destroyed your faith in that fine broadcast network. And then join us again next time here.
Come back and watch us again because it's really getting fun.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.